My name is Sharon Foster, and looking back, I should have known better than to trust the warmth in my brother's invitation. The drive from Vermont to Riverside, Connecticut, had taken us 4 hours. 4 hours of Maverick humming along to classic rock while our daughter Willa read in the back seat, her nose buried in and of Green Gables. 4 hours of our son Jude asking every 30 minutes if we were there yet. His excitement about seeing Uncle Reed bubbling over like soda left too long in the sun. Maverick had dressed the way he always did. A soft chambray shirt, khakis that fit him perfectly, and the brown leather loafers he'd resoled twice because they were, finally, broken in right. His salt and pepper hair was slightly tousled, and he wore the easy smile of a man comfortable in his own skin. I'd chosen a simple cream silk blouse and navy slacks, paired with my grandmother's pearl earrings. Willa wore a vintage Ralph Lauren dress I'd found at an estate sale, soft pink with delicate embroidery. Jude had on his favorite polo and pressed khakis, looking like a miniature catalog model, though he'd managed to wrinkle the front by the time we pulled up the long driveway shortly after 7. The mansion rose before us like a film set. White columns gleamed in the light, and luxury cars, Mercedes, BMWs, a Bentley, lined the circular drive. "Wow," Jude breathed. "Uncle Reed lives here." "He's renting," I corrected gently, though my stomach was tightening. Maverick said nothing, but I caught the narrowing of his eyes as he took in the scene, that observational look he got when he was writing. I knew better. My husband was always calculating, though few suspected the quiet nature writer was anything more than that. We parked our 8-year-old Volvo between a Tesla and a Jaguar. The party spilled across the terrace, filled with women in designer dresses and men in suits sharp enough to cut glass. The air smelled of expensive perfume and the particular scent of wealth, that mix of privilege and exclusivity that makes the uninitiated feel they are breathing different air. As we made our way up, Willa's hand found mine, her palm damp. She was 9 and perceptive. "You look beautiful," I whispered. He squeezed back. At the entrance, a coordinator with a clipboard intercepted us. "Names, please." "Sharon Foster. This is my husband, Maverick Miller, and our children." The woman's expression shifted. Not rude but cooler. "Ah yes, the Vermont family. Right this way." I felt Maverick's hand settle on my back as we followed her. We passed the VIP zone where I spotted my brother Reed holding court. We'd driven 4 hours and I'd brought a first edition book for his fiancée Helen. But as Reed looked over, his eyes flickered with something new. Embarrassment. He glanced at his coiffed guests, then back at our LL Bean and vintage Ralph Lauren. He didn't move. The coordinator led us past the main seating, past the bar, and finally to a round table tucked in a corner near the kitchen door. The lighting was dim, the view was of the service entrance, and the music was muffled by the wall. This was the fringe. "Enjoy the party," she said, already turning away. Maverick pulled out a chair for me, his movements unhurried. When he sat down he was silent, but his jaw tightened. "Mom, why are we sitting by the kitchen?" Willa asked. "It's fine, honey. We can see everything," I lied. But we knew. Across the terrace, Reed laughed, champagne flute raised. He didn't look our way again. Maverick leaned back, his fingers drumming against the tablecloth. To anyone else he looked relaxed. But I knew he was taking notes, and Maverick's notes always came with consequences. The party hummed like an exclusive machine. Waiters glided past our table without a glance, their trays angled toward the VIPs. Jude kicked his feet. "When do we eat? I'm starving." "Soon, buddy," Maverick said, ruffling his hair. He'd positioned his chair at an angle to observe the entire party. Movement caught my attention as Helen glided toward us. Her champagne-colored dress caught the light like spun sugar. At 28, she had perfected the art of looking expensive. "Sharon." Her voice carried false warmth. "I'm so glad you could make it from Vermont. It must have been quite the journey." 4 hours, I said. "Not bad." "Well, you're braver than me. I couldn't imagine living so far from civilization," she laughed. But I suppose that's the artistic lifestyle. Reed told me you work for a nonprofit. That must be so fulfilling. The way she said it made fulfilling sound like a consolation prize. Maverick's hand found mine under the table, a silent reminder. Let her talk. Helen's gaze swept over the children, lingering on Willa's dress. And this must be your daughter. What a sweet vintage dress. Very quaint. Willa's smile faltered. It's Ralph Lauren, I said. From the 80s. Better quality than most things made today. Oh, absolutely. Vintage can be charming. Helen's smile sharpened. It's just that people here prefer current collections. But there's something to be said for making do. Very resourceful. Making do. As if we were one step from a thrift store. A waiter appeared at the VIP section, and Helen shepherded a small group of guests toward us like a safari guide. Everyone, this is Sharon Reed's sister. She lives secluded in Vermont for inspiration. A life that is very chill, but surely removed from our fast-paced world. The guests' eyes slid over us with practiced disinterest. I could read the narrative Helen was spinning. The sister who couldn't hack it in the real world. Actually, Maverick said mildly, Sharon manages complex projects with 7-figure budgets. The non-profit sector requires quite a bit of pace, just less emphasis on profit margins. Helen's smile didn't waver. Of course, though I imagine the salary must be modest. But that's the sacrifice for passion, right? She moved on before I could respond. Jude tugged my sleeve. Mom, can I get one of those things they're carrying? He pointed to the buffet near the VIP zone. He was sliding out of his chair when Helen materialized again. Oh, Jude. I'm not sure those appetizers are right for you. The foie gras and caviar are acquired tastes. Since you haven't had proper palate training, you'll find them hard to swallow. She tilted her head. I'll have the kitchen make you some spaghetti or fried chicken. I'm sure you're more used to those. The implication was clear. Your family only knows simple fare. You don't belong. No need, Helen. I stood, placing a hand on Jude's shoulder. The children will eat with us. We teach our kids to experience everything. For the first time, Helen's smile cracked. I was only trying to help. We don't need help. Guided Jude back. Helen straightened, her expression cooling. She glanced at Maverick, but he just smiled blandly. Suit yourself, she said, sweeping away. The party reached its crescendo by 10 to 8. I was explaining to Jude why he couldn't have a third canopy when I noticed Willa's empty chair. She'd gone to the restroom 10 minutes ago. I stood, scanning the crowd, and finally saw her walking back toward our dark corner. Her shoulders were hunched, her arms wrapped around herself. Even from here, I could see the redness around her eyes. Willa, I whispered. What happened? She shook her head, jaw clenched. Can we just go home? Sweetheart, talk to me. Some kids, she swallowed hard. There were girls by the bathroom. They pointed at my shoes. They said I was wearing poor person shoes. They asked if we got them from a donation bin. The rage that flooded through me was white hot. My 9-year-old girl, mocked for suede flats that were classic and well-maintained. Before I could speak, the click of heels announced Helen's return. Is everything all right? Her voice was pitched loud enough to draw attention. We're fine, I said flatly. Are you sure? Willa looks upset. Helen crouched down to Willa's level. Oh, sweetheart. You know, children here are raised differently. Their parents are business leaders. These kids are being groomed for Yale. They have very refined standards. My fingers curled into fists. Helen continued her teacherly tone. Honestly, Sharon, I've been worried. Living so isolated in Vermont, without exposure to proper social settings. It causes culture shock. They don't understand the expectations. She was defending the bullies. Maybe next time, Helen said, standing. You could prepare them better? Make sure their clothing is appropriate. It would save the awkwardness. The crowd was watching now. I could feel their judgment. Helen's message was crystal. This is your fault for bringing backwoods children to a place they don't belong. I was shaking, ready to scream. But Reed was there, and he was my only brother. If I made a scene, I'd be the villain. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping the floor. I looked at Maverick, expecting him to lead us to the car. Instead, Maverick stood slowly, his eyes finally losing their bland, pleasant mask. He didn't look at Helen. He looked past her, toward the business leaders who were eavesdropping. Then he looked at me and winked. "You know, Helen," Maverick said, his voice carrying with a sudden authoritative resonance that stopped the surrounding conversations dead. "It's funny you mention refined standards. Because in my line of work, we have a term for people who scream about their wealth while sitting on a mountain of predatory debt and unfiled disclosures. We call them targets." He pulled a small, leather-bound notebook from his pocket, the one everyone thought was for nature poetry. He flipped it open. "And since you're so worried about Willa's education, maybe we should start a lesson on due diligence. I've spent the last 4 hours observing, as you put it. Would you like to discuss the offshore holdings Reed mentioned to the Bentley owner 10 minutes ago? Or should we talk about why this mansion's lease is currently under review for non-payment?" The silence that fell over the terrace was absolute. Helen's face went from porcelain to ash. Maverick tucked the notebook away and reached for Willa's hand. "Let's go, Sharon," he said softly. "I think we've seen enough of civilization for one night." Helen's smile widens. Victorious. She thinks she's won. Then Maverick stands. The change in him is immediate. Gone is the gentle, soft-spoken man who spent dinner quietly eating pasta. The air around him seems to drop 10 degrees. He stands to his full height, moving with a controlled precision that makes people instinctively step back. He doesn't say a word. He simply stands there, one hand adjusting the button of his suit jacket, and the silence spreads outward like ripples in water. Conversations die. Glasses stop clinking. Maverick doesn't look at Helen. He looks at me. His blue eyes are calm, cold, and completely focused. There's a question in them, one we've asked each other 1,000 times in 17 years. "Have you had enough?" It's the same look he gave me the day I told him about the harassment at my old job. The same look before he made a phone call that resulted in my former boss being audited by the IRS. Maverick doesn't make threats. He doesn't need to. I think about Willa's red eyes. About Jude's confusion when he couldn't have a burger. About being shoved into a dark corner while Helen parades around in a dress that costs more than our monthly grocery bill. I think about my brother Reed, who I drove 4 hours to celebrate, who hasn't once come to check on us. I look at Maverick and nod. The decision is made. Helen's smile falters. She takes a small step back, her eyes darting between us. Maverick's expression doesn't change. He reaches down, helping Willa out of her chair with infinite gentleness, then does the same for Jude. "We're leaving," I say, my voice steady. "I choose our dignity over my brother's party." "Choose us." Nearby conversations pause. Helen's uncertainty evaporates, replaced by triumph. She straightens, that megawatt smile returning. "You know what? I think that's the smartest decision you could make. This is my house after all. Mine and Reed's. I have to maintain a certain image. For our investors." She emphasizes those last words like stones. My house. The claim hangs in the air, territorial and absolute. She's not just dismissing us. She's evicting us from her domain. I'm gathering Willa's purse when I catch a flicker in Maverick's face. Smirk. It's gone in an instant, but I know it. I've seen that expression exactly 3 times. Before a hostile takeover, before dismantling a competitor, and before outbidding an oligarch for a property just to prove a point. It's the look of a man who's been handed exactly what he wanted. "Sharon." Reed's voice cuts through. He's pushing through the guests, his tie askew, looking bone-tired. "What's going on? Why are you leaving?" Helen shifts gears, hand to her chest. "Oh, Reed, Sharon said she wasn't comfortable here. The vibe isn't really." She trails off, letting him fill in the blanks. The implication is clear. Your sister doesn't fit in. Reed's face crumples with guilt. Sharon, I'm so sorry. Maybe you should take the kids back to the hotel. You must be tired from the drive. He's apologizing for Helen's behavior, and he has no idea. My brother actually believes he lives here. He believes this is his home, his life. He has no clue that every piece of furniture he's lounging on exists because Maverick decided to be generous 3 years ago. Reed thinks he's the host. In reality, he's a tenant whose lease is about to expire. It's fine, Reed, I say. We'll get out of your way. Reed, sweetheart, Helen touches his arm. Let them go. We have guests. The Castellanos were asking about the investment timeline. She steers him away. Reed's shoulders sag in defeat. He shoots me one more apologetic look before allowing himself to be led back toward the lights and the people who matter. Maverick is silent, helping Jude into his jacket. But I see it again, that tiny quirk at the corner of his mouth when Helen said, "My house." Maverick. Murmur. "Not yet," he says softly. We're almost to the foyer when Helen's voice rings out, bright and performative. "Drive safely. And Sharon, next time, let us know if you need recommendations for children's clothing. I know some boutiques that aren't too expensive." The laughter that follows is polite but present. Guests are openly watching now, entertained. Willa's hand tightens in mine. Maverick stops walking. He doesn't turn around, but the air pressure shifts. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out his phone. The motion is casual. He taps the screen, scrolling. "Actually," he says, his voice carrying effortlessly. "Before we go, there's something I need to discuss with Reed." The room goes quiet. Helen's smile freezes. "I'm sorry, what?" Maverick finally turns. He looks professional. "Reed, could you come here? It's about the house." My brother emerges, bewildered. "The house? What about?" "The lease," Maverick says simply. "I wanted to give you proper notice in person." Reed blinks. "Notice? What notice?" And just like that, the trap springs. The quiet writer has vanished, replaced by a man who moves with the confidence of someone who's spent decades in boardrooms where millions change hands with a signature. "Reed," Maverick says, "do you remember the name of the parent company on the lease you signed?" What? Why right now? Just answer the question." Reed searches his memory. "Ironwood Holdings. I signed through the agent. Is there a problem?" Maverick pulls out his phone and turns the screen toward Reed. "Read it. Out loud." Reed's voice emerges shaky. "Internal directive. Dated April 2020. From V. Miller, Chairman. Subject: Foster account exception. Approve exception for Reed Foster's residential file. Freeze 2020 rental rates indefinitely. Any difference between frozen rate and market value to be accounted for in the chairman's family charity adjustment account." The silence is absolute. Even the string quartet trails off. "I don't." "What does this mean?" Reed's voice cracks. Helen has gone utterly still. I watch understanding dawn on her face like ice cracking across a pond. "It means," Maverick says, "that the lifestyle you've enjoyed for 3 years has been heavily subsidized. The market rate for this property is $4,200 per month. You've been paying $2,800. Over 3 years, that's $50,400 in effective charity." Reed staggers. "No, I can afford this place. I make good money." "You make a good salary," Maverick corrects. "But you're a Henry. High earner, not rich yet. You spend everything trying to maintain an image beyond your means. Without the subsidy, you couldn't afford this address. Not while funding luxury car leases and the country club Helen insisted on." I watch my brother's face crumble. Every dismissive comment Helen made about people knowing their place had been built on a foundation of charity from the man she'd been mocking all evening. Maverick turns to Helen. "You're right about one thing, Helen. Class cannot be faked. But real class isn't about designer labels. It's about how you treat people when you think they can't do anything for you. He pauses, letting his words sink in. The class you've been so proud of was funded by my family's charity. Every time you looked down on someone for wearing LL Bean instead of Louis Vuitton, you were doing it from a position you didn't earn. You were living on borrowed elegance. Helen's champagne flute slips, shattering on the marble. No one moves to clean it up. Now, Maverick continues, his voice crisp and businesslike. As chairman of Ironwood Holdings, I am formally notifying you, Reed, that I am exercising my right of non-renewal. Your lease expires on the 30th of next month. You have 30 days to secure housing that aligns with your actual budget. Maverick, please. Reed's voice breaks. I'm not evicting you, Maverick says with a hint of kindness. I'm declining to renew. 30 days is sufficient. I'd suggest looking off Route 7. Nice places. Much more aligned with your income bracket. He slips his phone back into those tragically suburban khaki pockets and reaches for my hand. As for whose house this is, he says, glancing at Helen with pity, I think we've established that. But don't worry, you have 30 days to enjoy it. The crowd parts as we move toward the door. Guests are suddenly very interested in their shoes. At the door, Reed catches up, face streaked with tears. Maverick, I didn't know. I swear. Maverick pauses, his hand firm on Reed's shoulder. I know. That was intentional. But Reed, your value has nothing to do with this address. When you figure out where your true worth lies, without these expensive props, then we'll talk. Really talk. The cool night air hits my face, and I draw a breath that feels like the first real one in hours. We climb into our 7-year-old Subaru with the dent in the bumper. Daddy! Willa's voice pipes up from the back. Are we richer than Miss Helen? Why didn't you say so when she was being mean about our clothes? Maverick catches her eye in the mirror. Being rich isn't about showing off, sweetheart. It's not about making people feel small. True wealth is having the power to set things right without needing to raise your voice. It's being secure enough that you don't need everyone else's approval. Sometimes, the most expensive thing you can wear is authenticity. The lights of Riverside fade behind us, replaced by the darker, older trees of the real Connecticut. Our headlights carve a path toward our farmhouse in Vermont, a place with creaky floors and a garden that grows actual vegetables. Maverick's hand finds mine across the console. We hadn't won because we had more money. We'd won because we knew who we were. And no amount of judgment from people living beyond their means could ever change that.